In this video, I'm going to show you 3 things that you didn't know about the Windows command prompt. And number 1 is going to be the star of the show, and the most interesting thing that some hackers or penetration testers or red teamers might be able to use to hide their own code execution or commands that they run within the command line. But before we dive in, let me give some quick love to today's sponsor. Developers are constantly changing the digital landscape. But building secure software isn't always easy, especially in growing applications worked on across massive teams. Companies end up with mountains of code, and they have to make a choice: stay competitive or stay secure. But with Snyk, you don't have to choose. Snyk helps bake security into the software development lifecycle. Snyk helps you scale and streamline by automatically scanning your code, dependencies, containers, and configuration files, finding and fixing vulnerabilities in real time. And it is super easy to use. You can sign up for free with my link below, import your repositories, and there, Snyk just finds your vulnerabilities. You can fix all these issues with just a single click. Snyk automatically opens a fixing pull request so you can just merge them into your repository and move on. And it fits seamlessly into all of your existing tools: IDEs, the command line, CI/CD pipelines, cloud infrastructure, and more. Millions of developers love Snyk, and you can see for yourself. Get started for free with my link below and develop fast and stay secure with Snyk. Okay, so first things first, let's hop on over to our computer screen. I'm working in a Windows 11 virtual machine, and I'm going to fire up the terminal. I'm going to go ahead and open the command prompt, and it is going to invoke PowerShell by default, but that's a-okay, because first things first, I want to showcase what this comspec environment variable is. So if you are using PowerShell, you're going to end up using echo to display out onto standard output, $env to denote, hey, we're going to be looking at an environment variable, colon to denote that this is a PS drive, and the variable name that we'd like called comspec. I'll hit enter on that, and by default, it is c:\/windows/system32/cmd.exe, which, if you aren't familiar with, is just the regular command prompt, right? If I could go ahead and enter cmd.exe, it would run the command prompt, which is different, bear in mind, than, hey, straight Windows terminal. In fact, you'll notice kind of the color prompt, etc. I won't be able to enter just PowerShell on its own, right? I'm going to actually be inside of the old school DOS batch, whatever you kind of want to refer to it, cmd.exe command prompt. So the environment variables are referenced in a different way in this case. Now I'm going to end up using % signs to denote the variable that I want to use, and that will still give me the exact same value. You could determine these with the set command within strict original hardcore cmd.exe. This displays all this on its own, while in that PowerShell Windows terminal, you really want to end up dir or ls or getting all the contents out of the environment drive, that PS drive, bear in mind. I believe you need to follow that with a backslash, or I might have that wrong. Oh yeah, you don't need the $sign when you're trying to list out of that strict PS drive. There you go. So that works just fine for us. Now, there's an interesting thing that I want to note here, because I was focusing in on the comspec environment variable. So here's a fun thing that you might not be familiar with, and that is trick number 1 that we're going to get into. I'm going to get back to my old school original cmd.exe, and I'm going to end up using the set variable one more time, or the set command, sorry, to go ahead and actually change the value of comspec. I'm going to do something weird. I'm going to set it to calc.exe. Now, this might be odd to you because calc.exe on its own is just the calculator application, right? But I'm going to go ahead and ask Uncle Google here and get into Wikipedia to better explain this. The comspec variable is one of the environment variables used in DOS old school cmd.exe, and it refers to the full path of the command line interpreter. It can be also really anything else. Like, you can set it if you want, but it does something odd. And this was kind of first noted by a fellow that I found on Twitter. I believe this is Wade Hickey, or Wiki is his WHICKEY, and his actual Twitter handle is not Wiki. But I saw something interesting where he was setting this comspec value, and he was going to go ahead and actually change it from what it would have been, and that it's no longer the original cmd.exe. But if you ended up actually echoing anything, like literally anything, like literally, oh, hey, here's a please subscribe, I see one, and piping it into some other command that ended up doing some command line interpretation, or, you know, stuff that it might do on the command line. And there were some oddballs in here that worked and that didn't work. But if I were to use something like clip or clip.exe to put something into my clipboard, oddly enough, it invokes comspec. It started that calc.exe for me. Now that's just weird, right? So I kind of was curious, ooh, what more could be done here? And he's shown in even his tweet that this could happen for other situations. Like you could pipe this into who am I? Still pops calc, and who am I executes. We could change this to like type. Let me change that again to the type command. And that fires, and it actually fires twice, which is weird. I don't exactly know why. I don't know if it's just because, oh, it's going to be reading standard input in two different ways. I'm not sure. If anyone could school me and help me get a little bit more educated on that, I'd be super duper grateful. But you could do this just as well for like dir and others. That would, again, fires twice. But some of those are kind of weird. Like clip is small and simple enough. It does have a side effect of you putting something into your clipboard. However, if I were to change this to maybe some command that doesn't do anything, like break, how about that? Still fires. Okay, cool. Actually fires twice though. So maybe that's not the best. If you aren't familiar with break, it is just the compatibility to do nothing. It is literally like been true on Linux. The command doesn't do anything. And you might be familiar with other like commented commands, things into like add a remark or rem. It does nothing. It like, hey, literally after the word rem or for a remark, it won't let you be interpreting the rest of the command here. So here's an oddball thing. What if we took break and then piped it to rem? Break to do nothing and rem to just be the end of the command that it's like a comment that fires. Now this is really weird because it would be worthwhile to do something like actually with arguments, right? Or something peculiar. But this is point number one that I wanted to show you of something new that you didn't know about the Windows command prompt. What if we were to go ahead and change this comspec variable to something like, Notepad. We can tell Notepad to try to open a file, right? So let me go ahead and create, I'll put something way up in our C drive. Let's create I didn't go to it. Let me go to a test.txt. Cool, I already have one actually created for me from some previous testing. That just has the value in there, you know, of course, as it should. So let me try to go ahead and use Notepad to open test.txt. Okay, let's try now to use our break pipe to rem technique, but it doesn't invoke anymore. It says the file name, directory name, or volume label syntax is incorrect. That's kind of weird. So we could use some of our silly security research tools, some simple small stuff like the Process Explorer to see what's happening, how and when, right? What if we were to go ahead and start to piecemeal this sort of thing? Let me go ahead and clear the screen one more time. Let me set comspec as to what it was and then try to invoke this. But I don't see any process created underneath my cmd.exe process. Let me try to slow this down. Let's go one step at a time here. Let's remove the argument or the parameter that we're giving to this comspec variable, and let's see what this looks like when we trigger it with break pipe to rem. Notepad says the system cannot find the path specified, which is kind of odd, but it does fire. So what is this thing? Here's our Notepad process, and since it can stay up for us, we can actually take a look at how this was invoked. Now, weirdly enough, Notepad, within quotes, is present there, /s/d/c, and then break, in quotes with the space. Now, if you aren't familiar, these would be arguments that would naturally go to cmd.exe, right? We've configured and changed what comspec is to Notepad, and it's totally okay to work with these parameters, but it's expecting those to be like the file name that it's going to open in the Notepad text editor. Now, break always seems to get in the way here because that's the argument in a weird way that we invoke this with. Let me show you that in a different setup, right? What if I did that echo A into, I don't know, which one worked for us? Who am I? That fired. Again, the who am I output is present there. But now take a look at how this was invoked. I have my echo A included as an argument, quote unquote, to Notepad with this other leftover stuff that, again, is really rooted in what cmd.exe should do. If I clear the screen, let's take a look at cmd's help file. So /s would modify the treatment of the string after /c. /d will disable execution of auto run commands from the registry. What is the /s going to do? Okay, no, that's just manipulating how it might handle /c stuff, which does get invoked in our case, but we might be able to explore that and understand that a little bit better later. Anyway, I thought this was super duper odd because it looks like that the second parameters that we end up giving this thing are going to be invoked as if it's part of the command that we're using to hide this, like the break. Because honestly, maybe this is kind of slick. Maybe, at least in some weird way, hey, you're sort of again proxying or masquerading or hiding the original command that you want to run or the process that you want to start. And hey, for your actual invocation and execution, you do something that isn't the command originally. You're hiding it within the comspec variable. Kudos and credit to Wiki to be able to put this together here. But I'm thinking, what could we realistically do with this if seemingly I can't easily control the arguments? Here's some weird stuff. You might have noticed that those double quotes are present there. What if we tried to do the same thing in PowerShell? Here, let me open up terminal again. Now I'm using the real Windows terminal. If I were to try and set the $env comspec variable to be notepad.exe, note, once I try to use break : or pipe to rem, this will not actually detonate because the PowerShell syntax is going to be interpreting this rather than the old school DOS capability. And same with rem. We are going to end up needing to invoke that through cmd/c for our own testing sake, for playground, for experimentation. Maybe if you were doing this as a technique and a real thing, you would be able to invoke it through cmd on its own. So this fires, and take a look. Notepad.exe now as a child process no longer has a double quotes because it's not going to be literally interpreted like cmd.exe would want to do. So we're thinking, okay, maybe we could do some of the other tricks that would break out of this /s and /d parameters that are just naturally included here, right? Could we use like rem to try and cut that out? No. We get some really weird output that says .com, .exe, .bat, all these things are not recognized as an internal or external command. I don't know if you're familiar, but this is actually the path extension variable. That's the value of path ext. It's like trying to see, oh, can it run something? And it's invoking path ext. Odd and weird. We could try and manipulate that. We could set a value to this, but then it wouldn't know to execute it naturally because it won't have the .exe as part of its regular path ext transfer. I don't exactly know or understand. That one's really weird to me, and I've been trying to play with this and make more sense of it, but I will leave it as an exercise for the reader if folks want to explore that more. Anyway, I did think it was weird in that, what if we tried to do some redirects after I set this and then tried to run my cmd/c break : rem. Same error, : that breaks just as well. Maybe if I redirect, also gets the weird path extension thing. also gets the weird path extension thing. I cannot track it down to be able to pass in arguments other than this notepad.exe all on its own. Even giving it just like something stupid that won't invoke or execute is then going to have this error where path.exe is some way, somehow being executed as if it is a command. Weird, and I'm not understanding how or why. I would love to be schooled and educated, so please let me know in the comments if you happen to know. But I thought, okay, we have a little bit of a trick here because we can just invoke whatever binary that we might want, notepad and calc.exe as a super small, stupid example. We still, why is process mod rolling? Let's check out. We still always have these arguments forced to us. So you could craft your very own executable that will ignore /S/D/C and then maybe include arguments one way or the other, or just do whatever you want it to do because it's your executable that you might invoke in this weird, not referring to it, but somehow referring to it method. Is there still any way we could avoid these arguments that are getting in the way? I tried to think on this and I was wondering, could I fill this with more stuff? Like, could I, here, let's close out our notepad so we get back to this as a session. And let's take our environment variable and then just, I don't know, fill it with a bunch of gunk. Fill it with like A characters or something. We know those won't work, but spaces seem to fly. And I try to run this thing. It's weird because all those spaces are maintained. So I thought, could I maybe push this to the edge and find some sweet spot or threshold where it'll be truncating the values that it might execute on the command line? Is that possible? Does that happen? So I Googled, I went around and looked up, hey, what is the maximum length of a command that you can enter on the Windows command line? So please let me make this weird fact number 2, something that you didn't know, but the Windows command line. There is a limitation. The maximum length of the string that you can enter at the command prompt is 8,191 characters. And now you know. Now you can tell all your friends, your family, hey, write home about that. Tip your waitress, try the veal. This is the story that you can tell at parties. The command prompt will only execute commands up to 8,191 characters in length. And this is a really weird thing. So let me show you something really, really weird here. I know it's odd. I'm going to open up idle on my host here so I can just use Python to actually take a space character and then multiply it by 8,191 characters. Now, once I hit enter here, it's going to generate this out in a small little expandable box. So I'm going to click on that and you can see the blue single quote will denote the beginning of this, and then all this white space, literally a space character, has been fanned out up until this trailing ending single quote. Now, if I copy this, I'm going to open up just a regular cmd.exe on my host in Windows 10 here, and I'm going to zoom in on this, and then I'll enter like, notepad.exe, and notice my cursor is here, but I'm going to right click and paste, and now my cursor has gone way, way, way far away. The question is, where has my cursor gone? Because if I scroll out, you can see my cursor there, but it won't let me type any more into this command prompt window. It won't let me type any more into this command prompt box. Here I go. I'm on my keyboard here, and I'm going to hit the space key, but it is not letting me type anything else. It maxed out the buffer here. And with that, I can run notepad.exe because it won't let me go anywhere further than 8,191 characters. But what if we were to try and bake this into our weird comspec variable, right? So let's go check out the rest of this Microsoft note here. There's an interesting thing. If we scroll through here, we're thinking, wait a second, there's a Win32 limitation for environment variables, and that's 32,767 characters. So maybe that is weird fact number 3. Little fun fact of the Windows command prompt. Your environment variables can be 32,776 characters in length, while your command on its own could be 8,191. But note, here's the gimmick. Here's the catch. Here's what we'll run into. The command prompt will ignore any environment variables that are inherited from the parent process and are longer than its own limitation of 8,191 characters, as appropriate to the operating system. So let's do something weird. Let's take what we've learned here and open up ISE, and let's create a new simple script. We can call this just like, where do we want to put this? John, this is like the cloud, shoot. I don't want that stuff. Just take me to my location here. Let's do this like play.ps1 here. And let's go ahead and say, hey, here's our environment variable comspec. We're going to put that equal to notepad.exe, which is what? 11 characters? Is that right? We start at column 15 and then we end at column 26. Yeah. So let's do that plus, I think I can concatenate strings like that in PowerShell with 8,191 minus, I guess, 11 characters, right? Because that'll be the full length to make this whole 8,191 work. So let's use our cmd/c now to invoke this in a weird way with break pipe to rem. I'll fire this up. I'll hit F5. And this is because it's in a virtual machine, it's not going to let us run scripts like that. So let me go ahead and start up PowerShell and set execution policy to remote signed. That way I can run script on my own machine. Perfect. Good by me. Let's run that one more time with F5. And this doesn't work. I have .com.exe, .bat, etc. My path ext thing is getting in the way. But that's odd. Should I add another space character there? Run one more time. Huh. Now I have no parameters being executed as an internal or external command. What if we tweak these numbers here? Now we're with this extra space character, we have 12 characters. But what if we took out a little bit more than that so we know that it will in fact fit? If I run this, it still doesn't work for me. That's odd. And the reason that I say that is odd is because when I was poking at this earlier, kind of breaking the fourth wall here on my host, like I have this running again on Windows 10, where I would take the exact same syntax. Granted, I have a .exe at the end, but if I try to run this, it would trigger. It would run my notepad.exe. If I remove the .exe, so the syntax is literally the exact same, it will still fire. Even, hey, subtracting enough spaces that it would give that path ext error previously in my Windows 11 virtual machine. That's kind of weird. That's kind of odd. Now, obviously, if we were to try to give this more data than it should have, like if it were to hit that, we only added too many spaces and we've broken past the 8,900 or 8,191 character length maximum, then, well, it won't let it happen. CMD is going to be truncated and we're ignoring that original command. It's just going to be an empty string here. So ultimately, that will not work for us. I cannot figure out, even trying to push back and forward and actually execute this thing, I can't see it run with all those arguments avoided. So at the end of the day, what have we really solved for? We can invoke some other executable in some way. If we supply our own custom executable, maybe that will handle those arguments and maybe do something specific that we want. Put in that location, run it whatever way you want with some maybe obfuscation if you really want for your comspec variable. And then you could trigger it with some strange command. Maybe that could get past some detection engineering, some specific static signatures it could be using for, defense or auditing, etc. but I can't make it all that flexible with other arguments. And I just thought it was weird. I just thought it was odd. And I thought it would be interesting to show it to you, because maybe then you at least are tricking and figuring out like, well, now I've learned at least 3 things that I didn't know before, and weird fun facts. You can see comspec be executed with some sort of executable commands. You can only have a Windows command line command prompt input as 8,191 characters or less, and your environment variables can only be 32,767 characters as a maximum. And now you know that, and I'm sorry for forcing that into your brain. But hey, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe it was a little bit more of an exploration. Maybe there wasn't a clear answer. We were just kind of seeing what we could see with some discovery-based stuff, but I hope that was fun and might give you some other inspiration to explore and poke at. Why was it doing all those weird things? And I don't honestly know, and I'm eager to learn from you if you would be willing to share your own expertise and knowledge in the comments. So with that, please do those YouTube algorithm things, like, comment, subscribe, etc. You know the drill. And hey, huge kudos and shout out and thank you to today's sponsor. If you haven't given Sneak some love and, I don't know, take a look at what they have to offer, please do. Link in the video description. Really, the only reason we can keep cranking out videos and doing great stuff on this channel is because of their support and many others. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.